Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallamu taslima wa ba'd. I want to tell you a story of an American teenage boy. This American teenage boy was living what I consider to be the typical American teenage life. He was born into a family that identified with a particular religion, but they didn't practice it. And because they didn't practice it, they didn't pass that on to him. They didn't teach him anything about it. And so as a result, this boy grew up not really thinking religion was important, but he believed in God. That was still left intact. You know, the original fitra that we all have. He was never taught don't believe. He was never taught to believe. He was just taught really nothing. That this is what we are, this is our religion, but we don't really practice it. So he was raised with that kind of understanding. So he believed in God, which a lot of Americans do, but he was primarily concerned with just having fun. He was just wanting to live the teenage life. And so he would go to parties, he would have a girlfriend, he would drink a little bit, go to clubs, dance. He would also gamble, slot machines, go to casinos, bet some money on football and basketball games, $50 here, $50 there, whatever, playing the lottery. If most of you in here observed his behavior, you would say, my gosh, look at that darkness. Up in the clubs, dancing, using all kinds of crazy language. And most of you would probably say, there's no way that he would ever see the truth of Islam. But as the story would go, that's exactly what happened. He discovered Islam and he accepted Islam. Now this story is a true story. How do I know it's a true story? It's my story. Alhamdulillah. I was that teenage boy doing those things. Now, every story, at least those that are most interesting, contains some kind of conflict. You know, we as converts, we get the question all the time. When I tell people that I converted or reverted to Islam, they don't ask why. They usually ask, what did your parents think, right? Because they assume that that's where the conflict is. And yes, I did have some conflicts, but that wasn't the greater conflict. The greater conflict for me actually came 3 years before that, when I knew nothing about Islam. I never even heard of Islam, didn't know any Muslims. I was a blank slate. And let me describe the conflict that I had. Let me set the scene for you. I had just purchased 2 bottles of alcohol. Hard liquor, not just beer, it was hard liquor. Stuff that if you drink a little bit of it, you're out. I had 2 bottles, and I stashed these bottles underneath my bed because I was hiding it from my mother, who I was living with. Because she didn't know that I liked to drink. She didn't know that I went out on weekends with my friends and went drinking. But one thing she did know, she knew that I gambled. How did she know that I gambled? Because she helped me with my gambling. Now, I don't know, maybe it was a way of kind of monitoring me and keeping limits on it, but she assisted me to place bets, $50 here, $100 there, on different sporting events, basketball games, football games. And she would call the local bookie, they call them a bookie, where they would take your bets over the phone, and at the end of the week, you have to settle the accounts. If he owes you money, he gives you the money. You owe money, you pay him the money. So the situation was this, is that I found myself losing. I had bet a few games that I thought I would win, and I didn't. So I was down $200. Now $200 is not a lot of money, I'm sure, to a lot of you. We're doing very well economically, alhamdulillah. Relatively speaking, may not be a lot of money. But put yourself in my shoes. At 16 years old, I didn't have a job. And so I was down $200. And the time was coming, the end of the week, where I had to pay up. And my mom said to me, she said, you know what? I'm not going to cover for you. You're on your own. Let this be a lesson to you. Make better bets next time. So I was down $200. And I said, Mom, there's a game on the schedule. It was Michael Jordan's Bulls against the Milwaukee Bucks. for all you basketball fans. And this was in the late 80s, and the Bulls were up and coming. And I said, Mom, this is a sure bet. We can't lose this. Let me bet the $200. We'll win it, and I'll break even, and I'll be done. Now, back then, we didn't have the satellite and the internet and all the channels we have now where we can watch the game. I was watching it on the ticker, on the ESPN ticker that went by. And the game was in the second quarter, and the Bulls were losing. Then it got to the third quarter. The Bulls were still losing. I bet on the Bulls, $200. And I became extremely desperate. It got to the fourth quarter. The Bulls were still losing. I would be out $400. I could not pay that money. My mom said she wouldn't cover for me. What the heck am I going to do? What did I do? I went upstairs to my room. I closed the door. I got on my knees and I prayed. I said to God, I said, oh God, if you win this bet for me, I swear to you, I promise you that I will take those 2 bottles of alcohol underneath my bed and I will flush them down the toilet. If you just do this for me. And so I said my prayer. I got up. I went downstairs. I turned the TV back on. My mom had a smile on her face because the Bulls started winning. To make a long story short, I ended up winning. And me and my mom were jumping up and down. We were celebrating. I said, yes, we're free and clear. Don't owe the bookie anything. And I'm done. And I was so happy. And I was so grateful. But then the smile went away from my face. Why? Because I remembered the promise that I had made. So I went upstairs. I shut the door. I got down on my knees. I reached under the bed. I grabbed the 2 bottles of alcohol. I went into the bathroom. I unscrewed the caps. And I was about to pour, and I stopped. And I said, what am I doing? Why in the world would I waste this alcohol? I paid money for this. I can't do this. I can't waste this alcohol. I screwed the caps back on. I walked back to my bed. I got on my knees. I started pushing the bottles back under the bed. And I said, what am I doing? I made a promise to God. And He came through for me. And so I got up. I walked over to the bathroom. I opened the toilet again. And I dumped the alcohol in the toilet.